Web Marketing That Works podcast, episode number 94, with today's guest, Greg Cassar.
Welcome to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. Come behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments and listen in as amazing guests confess the truth about what really works. Now, here are your hosts, Adam Franklin and Toby Jenkins.
My name's Adam Franklin, and you are listening to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. This is the show for people who love marketing on the web. You'll be taken behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments where we show you the good, the bad, and the ugly. We confess what's failed and reveal the truth about what really works. This podcast is brought to you by our book called Web Marketing That Works, and there's a special gift for you, and that is 33 free marketing templates from our book. To get your hands on those, head to bluewiremedia.com.au/book. Now, the guest today is a marketing professional called Greg Cassar. In fact, he's a direct response digital marketing professional, and his company is called The Collective. He's very knowledgeable. I spent some time on a roadshow with him recently and also heard him deliver a keynote at the Traffic and Conversion Summit. I've learned a heck of a lot from him, and he has an agency, which, as I've said, is called The Collective, and they've got this working format where it's basically done with you. So not full done for you. You can't just abdicate responsibility, but it's a teamwork and a partnership, which I find is a really interesting and effective business model. So anyway, Greg is the guest on today's show. I've given you enough of an introduction, so let's head over to the show. My name's Adam Franklin, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Greg Cassar. How are you, Greg?
Hey, Adam. Excellent. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Now, I've got a couple of questions. We'll get straight into it. Now, in my book, I often talk about the value of building a web marketing asset, and that implies something that, stands a test of time. Like if an article on your blog is here today, it can help people tomorrow, next week, and next year. And I've often been very cautious of actually paying for advertising in terms of things like Google ads or Facebook ads, because once you actually click on an ad, that then means that advert vanishes. Like you have to keep paying Google or Facebook money to keep getting traffic. And I do appreciate that it can be a way to scale your business, but I really wouldn't mind getting your take, because I know you're quite experienced with paying for traffic and really designing adverts that can scale. What are your thoughts on, I guess, the two? Are they mutually exclusive? Can they work together? Yeah, what's your take?
Absolutely. Look, I think, one of the things you said straight up was the importance of building a web asset. And one of the things I learned actually from Yaro Starak was about, if you ever want to build something that's sustainable, you need to build something that's sticky, so that people want to come back to it. So that's that whole, positioning yourself as an authority or a thought leader, something like that with your authority blog or with your authority website. So I'm a big believer in a combination of both the paid and the organic side. I really love the, organic side of things, 5 million in clicks over recent years. And so I've had some good experience with scaling traffic campaigns. And I do know that it's a very, very quick and effective way of scaling businesses. But provided that you're doing what I call being a marketing hawk, which is, really knowing your maps and knowing your stats. And you say, for example, if you're driving traffic over multiple different traffic sources, then really tracking and measuring based on lead source. So if I'm spending, 10 grand a month to drive traffic via Google AdWords, what did that result in sales? And if I spent 5 grand via Facebook, what did that result in leads and sales, that kind of thing. And then really focusing on the pruning. So being that gardener of, what, out of that 10 grand that we spent on AdWords, this 2 grand here was all for search terms that didn't result in any leads or sales. Let's cull that. Or, for example, with Facebook, this demographic just didn't result in any leads or sales. Let's cull that. So with today's modern digital, traffic tools that you've got available to you, there's just so many ways you can sort and sift the data and constantly be getting rid of anything that doesn't work, that you can really, I think you can get to the point where you can scale things like crazy. So I think it's a sort of a long way of saying both have their place. I normally get a winning offer going and scale it with paid traffic, but then complement it with organic traffic. And by building an authority blog, which I think, nearly every business should do, have some kind of authority presence, or whether it's a podcast or however you're doing it, that gives you another way of going back to your audience so that you're not doing one-shot marketing. I think you and I both met a whole bunch of business owners and entrepreneurs where the whole focus is on getting new clients. Whereas I think if you're putting good stuff out on your site or out on your blog, and then you can send an email to your list and send them back so that you're having multiple touches with them, that'll really help with that positioning as an authority. And also it really helps from an organic point of view as well, in that, it artificially props up your stats of, how many people are hitting your site and all that kind of stuff. So I think we're similar in approach. I probably just do more paid, and I think you probably do more in the free side.
Yeah, that's right. It's really fascinating, because I guess you made a really important point there, that paid traffic is excellent and can scale, assuming, of course, that you're a marketing hawk and you have an offer that converts and you know what's working. And my reluctance over the years talking with clients and audiences has been, a lot of times people aren't that sophisticated yet and don't necessarily have an offer or are able to track something all the way through to the sales. So it can be quite dangerous to actually go down the paid traffic site. But I totally agree, and I think it's such an exciting space to be in.
Can I add something on that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so one of the things that we found is there's no such thing as a traffic problem, from a paid side. There's really just an offer problem. So, because if you have a good enough offer and a good enough, marketing funnel behind it, and then a sophisticated follow-up sequence behind it, then you can make any traffic source. Basically, in business, he or she who can acquire the most customers, as a general rule, will win, and especially he or she who can acquire the most customers, cost effectively, will win. So, like, for example, with me, I was driving traffic to what I call a tripwire offer, which is a low cost, irresistible offer, like a free plus shipping DVD. So why I like those kind of offers is because psychologically they're turning from a site visitor into a customer. And what we do know is when someone's a customer, then they're 10 to 11 times more likely to buy from you again than if they're just a prospect. So love that aspect of it. But then what I found, was that the tripwire offer, so say, for example, I'm driving Facebook traffic directly to free plus shipping, grab this DVD offer, that was only really converting at 10%, which isn't amazing, you know what I mean? That means that 90% of people, so 90 out of 100 people, were leaving without doing anything. So what I do before that is add a lead magnet, so like a landing page offer, in this case, like a swipe file or an ebook or something that is just really quick and easy for people to grab. It's an exchange of value. They're giving us their email address and we're giving them something of high perceived value. And that sort of event's converting at like 40%. And then of that 40 out of 100 people, then on the next page, we add the free DVD offer behind it. Do you know what I mean? So we get them in on the free offer, then we turn them into a customer, and we use sophisticated tools like ClickFunnels that then allow them, if they've already bought one thing, and then most people stop there, and then the thank you page, rather than it just being a thank you page, if you can have another offer that complements it, that kind of thing, so that provided that what you're selling is awesome, is really going to help people, then, I feel don't be afraid to put your stuff in front of people. And then another thing I think is a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs I meet, they're really focused on one-shot marketing. So I'm going to drive traffic to this offer and then that's it, sort of thing. Whereas I think over time it needs to become like a really sophisticated architecture. And as traffic is getting more and more expensive as years and years go on, you need to think about, okay, even if I can make my traffic cost effective today, what's the cost of traffic going to be on Facebook and in Google, 5 years out from now? And am I building a sustainable architecture after that? Because like if you look in my business, if someone opts in for, say, a swipe file or an ebook, but then what happens behind the scenes of that? Well, straight away they get offered, a free DVD, they'll get offered an upsell. Then on the thank you page, we even make the thank you page work hard for them, telling them here's some other free stuff or here's some other trainings, that kind of thing. But then that's not the end of it. In there, we then, we welcome them via email. So the nurture that happens with our Infusionsoft behind the scenes is amazing. Then we'll give them the heads up of what's coming up, down the track. We'll then give them some more amazing content and really position ourselves so that if they're new to us, they know that we know what we're talking about, and we'll show them some social proof of things that we've done before. And then once we've given them some really good stuff, then make offers as far as, would you like to have a consult call? Would you like to talk to us about your business, that kind of thing. But then one of the things that I've learned recently is campaign stacking. So just because I've done a video saying, would you like to have a consult call? don't just stop there, which is another, mistake that I see people making. Then maybe give some more content, like as in a nurture, but then make that same offer again using a different medium. So I've got a PDF that works really, really well where I send them a PDF. Then I might give them some more good value. Then there might be another medium that does the same thing, like, for example, an email from one of my colleagues saying, I've spoken with Greg and they'd, like to meet you, that kind of thing. And then if all that doesn't work, then that doesn't matter. So then doing like behavioral dynamic marketing of, okay, if they've done those things, what next? And then offer them. So I might have another free DVD or I might have another product, and then sends them off into a campaign about that. Have they taken us up on this offer before? No. Then send them into that sequence. And if they have, yes, then send them into the other one. So really like multiple shots. So when someone gets onto our list, they literally go into this architecture of, at the moment it's like 30 emails, but it'll be more than that over time, so that we're not just doing that one-shot marketing. And I think that's part of the reason why a lot of people are worried about the price of traffic, but I'm not so much, in that my business is like an iceberg. You know what I mean? What you see on the surface is only the tiny little bit, and what happens behind the scenes is really the 80 or 90%.
Yeah, that is really cool. That's a great explanation, Greg, because I think with such that detailed architecture behind the scenes, then that totally negates the issue of the price of traffic. Because if you're paying for traffic literally to get to your website and that's all you do, and they read something and they leave, that's an incredibly wasteful way to spend money. But if that, as you say, if that money is being spent to get somebody onto your site to download a free piece of content, readers of my book and listeners of this show will know that I refer to that normally as flagship content or premium content. People often get, like you say, that's a lead magnet. So something of value that people can download. But then that's their entry point into that ecosystem or that architecture that you talk about. And then if you've actually sophisticated enough to build out email sequences and build offers into that, then I can see really easily how, if you're paying $3 for a lead through Facebook or Google ads or something, then you can easily recoup that $3 once you start making offers to them initially. And then, of course, you've got the lifetime value of that customer. That's incredibly valuable. So that's really making it a whole lot of sense, Greg.
Yeah, because I try to get my costs back as quickly as I can. And sometimes I get my cost back on day one. That's always my goal. Or I try to get more than, so if I'm spending $1, I try to get like $1.10 back or whatever. Don't always achieve that, but I know the maths overall, and I know that over time they're going to be offered multiple offers. And I also track and measure that, say we spent $5,000 on traffic this month, but what do we do in new business and that kind of stuff. So back to that again, the marketing hawk of, prune the wastage, which is one of the biggest things that we see people, not doing, and then build in those multiple touches so that, and across multiple mediums. So like now we're through that sequence, they'll also get thrown into like, a rolling launch where we're creating, amazing value over time and also planting the seed of what they want and need next. So that's one medium in there. But then another one is then putting them into a rolling, offering them a rolling webinar that the site of the person who's on your email list doesn't necessarily know that it's not just that one day, but it's still event driven because it looks and it feels real. And also we use things like smart links so that if we say this offer is going to turn off on 4 days from now, we can actually turn it off so that everything you're doing, I think, it has to happen with integrity and it has to be real. That way you can create something like a product launch. You can do it once and, do a tier list in your audience, your community, that kind of thing. But then put that into an automated sequence so that any new person that gets in there that goes through that whole architecture gets offered it. And while you might not say it's cutting off at 30th of June, you might say it's valid for the next 4 days only. And then you've got a smart link in there that using tools like Plus This for Infusionsoft or whatever that will then, it knows that when they click this from 4 days from now, if they click, the next one, it's going to send them to the, sorry, it's no longer available rather than the, it's still open page. So that way you're doing everything with integrity and hitting multiple medias and campaign stacking, I guess, is really what that is all about.
That's really cool. So, Greg, does this type of technique work for traditional businesses as well that have like a consulting service where they're selling physical products? Does it work just as well for that?
Yeah, good question, Adam. One of the things we found is that if we help business owners by focusing on profit, not just increasing sales, that ultimately they achieve what they really set out to with their business more, which is pulling money out of the business and having money to reinvest and that kind of stuff. So yeah, changing to a real profit focus is something that we've done in recent years. And so we came up with this term we call the Profit Triad. And basically it's like, as business owners and entrepreneurs, there's so many different things that we could be doing as far as projects, etc. But what about if we made them focus on, areas that were going to result in profit? And so what we think of, it's sort of like a triangle or a three-way stool. And the first part is, how do we get more clients? And then the second part is, how do we get them spending more? And then the third part is, how do we get them coming back again? So let's unpack that a little bit. So how do we get more clients? And I think this is where most people focus on, just, how do we get more clients constantly? But as you and I both know, that getting new clients all the time is, the most expensive clients that you can get. Often working with your existing database or clients that you've already got relationships with can be great. But, we do need to focus on getting new clients. So it can be things like, having an effective website with calls to action, Google AdWords, Facebook ads, building a marketing funnel, all those kind of things. Or Google Shopping, etc. If you're an e-commerce store, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do in the get more clients area, and a lot of people do focus on that. So then if we look at the second area, which is how do we get them spending more? So this is things like, and I think you and I have spoken a little bit about it before, with getting things happening like upsells. So adding more value, telling them, do you want to customize your order, that kind of thing at the time of transaction. We can also have things like, related products. Customers who bought this also bought. We can have things like bundles. So we do this really well in the snake repeller market, where we actually, and something you learn in copywriter school is to give everything a name. So we've got the backyarder and it's got 4 snake repellers in there, or there's the big house block, and it's got 6, or whatever it is, that kind of thing. So trying to encourage people to buy more of the same thing, can really, really work well. Then if we move into the third area, which is how do we get them coming back again? That's where we can do things like remarketing, which is where they've hit your website and then they start to see your banner ads or your Facebook ads or whatever as they go around the web. It might also be things like, email campaigns to your existing, to your existing list. It might be cart abandonment emails, that kind of thing. So there's a whole bunch of strategies, and as well as offline strategies, postcards, etc., or getting them, getting your existing prospects, clients back to whether it's physical events or webinars, other selling, opportunities. So we're just really focusing those 3 areas, and that's made a big difference on the businesses that we're working with as far as profit. And there's another sort of a hidden one as well, which is especially for people who are buying a lot of stock, just make sure that you can improve those margins by buying well. We were working with one business and they just weren't financially viable, as traffic costs and etc. continued to rise, as their costs continued to rise. And then we were able to talk to them about how to go back to the supplier and to their main supplier and negotiate better buy rates and that kind of stuff. So just that one move, made a big difference to the profitability of, and the viability of that business. But as sort of a side note, the Profit Triad is a major focus, that we look at these days.
I'm just thinking back to some of my early marketing days, and I learned from a guy called Jay Abraham, who I'm sure you're familiar with, and that Profit Triad is really nicely aligned with that, because I remember him saying that there's really only 3 ways you can increase revenue, and that's to get more clients, get them to spend more, and get them to spend more frequently. And that
Absolutely.
Aligns wonderfully with that. And I recall him saying, and I've noticed it a lot too, that as marketers, we spend a lot of time fixated on getting new clients, when in actual fact it's a lot easier to actually take the clients you've got, or the audience even that you've got, and make products to suit them, because it's a lot easier to sell to people who already know, like, and trust you, as opposed to actually always being on the hunt for new clients, selling something to them once and then looking for a new client.
Yeah, spot on, because chances are they've got more itches that they need scratched as well. So just because you've solved one problem for them, or one want, doesn't mean that you've necessarily hit all of them. One of the things we do in that space often is surveying. If you've got an existing database, or you're working with a client, their database, surveying their database and finding out what it is that they really want, and often asking open-ended questions and getting them to write back as meaningful as possible. And then taking that result, that data, and putting it into a spreadsheet, and then figuring out, well, actually, that answer really relates to this one. And then building a list of, that was the biggest want they had, then this was the next biggest want they had, that kind of thing. And then building products or services that hit the biggest want first, then the second biggest, then the third biggest. And that gives us what I call reason why marketing. So then it gives us a great reason to go back to the market and say, we asked, you spoke, and we listened. And the biggest thing that you guys really wanted was this. And so that's why, we've been working for the last 2 months, and we've brought in experts on da-da-da-da, and we put it together for you. And, here it is. And we find that, having a reason why, in all your marketing can make a massive, massive difference as well.
So in terms of an open-ended question to ask, what's an example of what you might ask in a survey question to your readers?
Okay. Yeah, so we worked with 2 copywriters, and we did a property launch in the property space, and we did $750,000 in this launch. And the first part of any good product launch formula is really asking, what is it that they really want? And so we asked a question, we built just a basic survey page with really just 2 questions on it. And the first question was, what is your biggest property investing, or problem with property investing that you have, right now? And then was please be as detailed as you want so we can help you best. And then the second question was just how hard has this problem been to solve? Very hard, average hard, or, not hard, that kind of thing. That was basically the gist of it. And then from that open-ended question, that was where we put it into the spreadsheet and, did that. These were the biggest wants. So say, for example, they wanted to find boom suburbs, property areas that are about to boom and that kind of thing. And the next one they might have wanted was cash flow property deals and that kind of thing. That then led into the product launch of, well, the first video, in the pre-launch sequence really should be about suburbs that are ready to boom. That's what people really want. So let's give them that. And then the cash flow one, because sometimes what they need and what they want, can be 2 different things. And often we've found, get them in with what they want and then sell them what they need, once you've got that trust going. But we've met a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs over time who have chosen markets based around, everyone needs this, but everyone needs this doesn't really work as well as, everyone wants this. Because it is a general rule, we buy based on emotion and then we justify with logic. So if we're trying to work just to their logic, it's not going to work as well.
So Greg, how about, you mentioned that you address the wants, the biggest wants in your pre-launch content, which for listeners who aren't familiar with this lingo, it means content that you give away for free in the build-up in order to build trust, in the build-up to actually making the offer of the program or the course or of the product further down the track. So how much would you actually use your pre-launch content videos to address their wants? And if so, how much would you hold anything back and keep that for the paid course? What's your take there?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it really is a balancing act, isn't it? Because in that pre-launch content, so in this case, it was 3 or 4 videos that were going out on certain days, and then it gave excitement about the things that were coming up. So you could see that the next video coming up is this and the next video coming up is that. So we needed to give, answer some of the questions, but we also needed to make sure that there was open loops. So there was other open questions. So in this one, in that particular launch, what we were actually building towards was an event. So we were building towards a webinar. So say, for example, we were talking about on the first video about boom suburbs. We might say, well, and here's some info about some areas that are ready to boom, but, there's only so much I can cover with you on this video now. If you want to learn more about this, click the banner on this page and register for next Tuesday's webinar, online briefing where we'll be going much, much deeper into it. But not only am I going to show you, what suburbs are booming right now, we're going to show you how to figure it out for yourself for next time so that, you learn how to fish rather than always being handed the fish and, that kind of stuff. So we would definitely give them some of the content and we've got to make it worthwhile, but we'll also seed for what's coming up and, how to basically look after themselves in the future.
That's really the great answer. Thanks, Greg, because I guess there's only so much you can cover in a 20-minute pre-launch content video, which means if you give as much value as you can that addresses their wants, then surely there's going to be more that you know and more that you can offer if you more than 20 minutes worth. So if you give them as much as you can for 20, and then I love that example that you've just given of guiding then people to a webinar where they can have an online briefing and then sell them into an event.
That pre-launch content and that webinar, that's when, the sales page would open as a result of, and now it's available here for anyone, go grab it now, that kind of thing, and then build scarcity and urgency and all that kind of stuff into the sales process. And launches are great. but I don't think you want to build a whole business around it. I think we all saw that a couple of years ago where there was just certain businesses that were just doing, product launch after product launch, which is great for, spikes in income, but it's not necessarily long-term sustainable. One thing we're finding now is we'll do a product launch, but then we'll find out ways of making it evergreen. So say, for example, you then get in our sequence and then you might go through the first bit, the second bit, the third bit, and then it goes into a launch sequence where you start getting the videos like what we spoke about in the property space. But rather than making them about, it's going to be the 12th of June that this is open, it's like, we'll say opens in the next 2 days, and we'll make those links real so that it does open in 2 days and it does expire at certain times. So we just make it, very real, very authentic, and use tools like Plus This for Infusionsoft and stuff that can do smart links that do make your links appear and make your links go away and that kind of stuff. So I find then if you've got a successful launch and then you can offer it to everyone who then gets on your list as they go through the sequence, and you've created amazing value for them. And then you're basically getting away from that problem we were talking about a minute ago of just having those spikes in income. You've built something that then just ticks away, and it's just another automated, marketing system within your business. Because I find it really does get to the point where you can kind of give yourself an unfair advantage if you really build out like a comprehensive, architecture. I don't think of it like the iceberg. People only see what's above the surface, but everything that happens behind. I think you can give yourself a massive advantage if you really, really follow up. Most people do, 1, 2, or 3 touches or whatever, as opposed to 30, 40, 50, or more touches.
Nice. That's a really nice analogy of what's happening below the surface nobody sees, and I think people sometimes underestimate just how powerful that can be, and probably neglect it because other people can't see it. It's kind of invisible to the eye, but just it really can make the difference, can't it, between a really successful business and one that struggles financially.
Well, I'm finding now that my front end stuff, like my landing pages and the offers that happen just behind that, all I'm trying to do is cover my costs. I'm just trying to acquire leads and customers at cost or as close as I can to. But then I know that the real money is going to be made, like behind the scenes as all that, automated follow-up happens. Because once you can get that in place and if you're doing a good job and you're providing amazing value, and really doing that even pagan thing of, moving the free line, so giving away some awesome stuff, and people, you mentioned it before, they know you, like you, trust you. I find that you can just have a machine that just constantly spits out leads. And there's a term that often goes around, or stat really, where they're saying, for every 1,000 people on your list, that should be worth $1,000 to you a month, that kind of thing. And we find if you do a really good job, and if you have some big ticket items, you can do a lot more than that. So, like, I know for us, if we have 1,000 people on our list, we'll do like 10 grand a month from that, that kind of thing. So if you get this whole thing coming together, you really, really can build an amazing perfect storm.
So Greg, just to clarify, that $10,000, say, for every 1,000 people on the list, is that pure online information type products, or does that also include in-person consulting?
Yeah, good question. No,
ventures?
It's a combination of everything. So it's like, some affiliate money, some product sales, some like the software sales, then it's coaching, it's implementation, it's seminars, events, all e-commerce stores, everything that we're doing. But definitely, and I think you're onto something, really, really powerful here, is that if you want to make really, really big money, sometimes you need to acquire people in an online medium, but then take them offline. So if you're selling a big ticket item, like if I'm selling you a small ticket item, like, here's $200 Facebook course or whatever, I can sell that to you, just online. But so say, for example, I'm selling you a high-end coaching package. I've got to take that online lead and move it to an offline medium, like the phone, and then go through a consultative, phone call, and then move it into it even further offline, like coming to masterminds and events and that kind of stuff. So I feel, a lot of people just think about, I'm an internet business, everything's online, but, that can restrict you at times if you think that, except for, just pure e-commerce plays, we work with a lot of those who do great as well. That can be exception. But if you're doing like products and services, then definitely having a combination of online and offline can work great.
And that's so reassuring for a lot of listeners who will be running traditional bricks and mortar businesses or corporate businesses who are aware that the online side of things is so important, but that they might certainly won't fill out of their depth because they don't have information products. But the fact is, you can get people in online, and you should be getting people in online, and then having that exact process that you've spoken about, a email sequence that actually attracts people in and takes them on that journey. But at the end of the day, a lot of the money from your email list and from your audience is going to come from in-person services like accounting or law or anything like that, or also, product sales as well of actual physical goods, which, a lot of listeners will have businesses that sell physical goods, not necessarily information products. So that it's really cool to know that whole process is just as applicable whether you're selling information or selling physical products or actual services. Now, Greg, you're speaking at the Traffic and Conversion Summit, which is coming to Sydney in July 2015. What sort of stuff can we expect you to be covering at that conference?
Cool. Yeah. So, because I'm in Ryan Dice's high-level mastermind in the US, and so that's how I sort of got to know Ryan and those guys well, and Frank and Perry, etc. Yeah. So, speaking at that event, we spoke briefly today about the Profit Triad. I'm going deep into that, and I'm going deep into that with examples for e-commerce. So I'm doing basically the Profit Triad for e-commerce. So like, what are all the different ways you should be getting clients, getting them spending more and getting them coming back again. Yeah, so I've got an hour or 90 minutes or something on that on I think the second day.
Awesome. Well, I will be there, and I know a lot of my fellow Sydney-based marketing people will be there, and I know several Bluewire news readers will be there too. So Greg, we'll make a point to come and say hello and listen in and take lots of notes during your session. Just before we call it a day, who are some of the people that you've learnt from over the years? And I guess you've already mentioned a couple throughout the show, but who are some of the people you've learnt from that listeners and myself can also look to follow and learn from as well?
Yeah, I guess the first one was really Mal Emery, so he's a direct response marketer, based out of Perth. I've got the opportunity to work with him for several years and ran his whole internet side of his business. And that was where I really learned direct response marketing and emotional direct response marketing, which people like Dan Kennedy, etc., have made popular and famous. Found the more I learned about direct response marketing, the more money that I made. And then I also learned a lot about traffic from people like Perry Marshall. That's how I learned how to become an AdWords consultant. Yeah, I did some good stuff with Andrew and Daryl Grant. I think, they were very smart, and I learned a lot of stuff, with them as well. And then, most recently, definitely, Ryan Dice and Perry Belcher and Frank Kern and, Richard Lindner and Roland Fraser, those guys from the Digital Marketer War Room. That's been my biggest influence, in the last 2 years. And then the next thing that I've got coming up is the 4-Day MBA, which is Keith Cunningham, the basically Rich Dad Poor Dad, the Robert Kiyosaki book. It's, Keith Cunningham is Rich Dad from that. And so I'm doing his program called the 4-Day MBA, which is basically just to try and get sharper in that level of, that area of financial IQ. So know how to run the numbers like a big CEO, from a big corporate, that kind of thing, because, you need the mindset, you need the strategies, the tactics, but you really need the financial IQ as well. I've found as business get bigger and bigger, if you don't know the financial IQ, then things can fall over. So that's really my next sort of cab off the rank, of things that I'm learning. But great question.
And finally, Greg, where can people go to find out more about you or get their hands on some of your, foundation content? Yeah,
cool. Reallycollective.com.au, the best spot. So there's a whole bunch of stuff on the blog there. There's literally hours of video training. So check that out.
And there's also a DVD that I've watched. I think on your website it's $7. It's free, but $7 shipping. Is that still available on your site?
Yeah, free plus $4.95 shipping.
$4.95.
We've got two there. One is like how to double your business using digital marketing, and that's really like from our marketing agency days, sort of the 80-20 principle of what we did, over and over again to double a whole bunch of businesses. And then there's another one there, which is the holy grail of digital marketing, which, really goes into the whole, funnel optimization and maximizing that return on investment on day one, with the clients. So both are really two very good ways of acquiring leads and clients.
Yeah, it's a holy grail one that I've watched, and I really, really found it valuable, hence us chatting on the show today. So Greg, thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to seeing you at the Traffic and Conversion Summit, and you have yourself a great day.
Yeah, excellent. And I think we're actually speaking on the same card with another event before that one too. So
That's right. Yeah, the digital marketing bootcamp in early July. That'll be a lot of fun, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. So Adam and I have 3 days on the road together, which will be great because we'll be able to share a whole bunch of knowledge. You'll probably be sick of me by the end of that, and glad to see the end of it. But I think I'm really looking forward to it. We'll be able to share notes on. I just love swapping time. Clever dudes and whatever. What's working for you and what's working for me. Like if I pick up one thing from you, I'm stoked, and if you pick up one thing from me, I'm stoked for that as well, sort of thing. So I think it's going to be really good.
Yeah, it'll be a good fun road trip, and I'm sure after 3 days on the road with you, Greg, there'll be more than enough content for another podcast that I'll just want to share with listeners as well. So yeah, I'll look forward to that, and you never know, we'll probably be doing another show shortly.
Absolutely. Cheers, Adam.
Cool, mate. See ya. And that's a wrap for my chat with Greg Cassar. I've really learnt from Greg the value of retargeting, and specifically Facebook retargeting. One of the things that he has taught me has been to put that audience pixel on your website. It sounds a bit techy, but it's actually it's really easy to do. You forward it to your web developer and they do it for you, but it's easy for them. Apparently, it's just one little snippet of code once on a website, and Facebook will remember everything that goes on. And I've been doing that and gathering data on the people that visit Bluewire website, which then, when we want to, and we're starting to experiment, that then gives us the option of having messages or our adverts appear when those people are on Facebook. So that's what it means by retargeting. So anyway, that's one of the many other things that I've learnt from Greg too. But there's some good similarities with Greg's material. It's very aligned with a lot of the stuff that I've been studying as well. But Greg's been one of the people that's been guiding me on the possibilities of what you can actually scale with paid advertising, particularly with Facebook. As you know, it's often been one of the things, especially in the book and everything else, where we've always been advocates of building good quality content and building a marketing asset because it appreciates in value over time. And what you produce is here today, it's here next week, and so on and so forth. It can get really quite expensive and tedious if you're spending money on ads and not actually getting any traction or any sustainable sort of asset at the end of it. But what I'm learning from Greg is that if you do actually have that funnel in place and you do have that back end of products and offers that you can be making people in place, then you know what a lead is worth, and then you can scale it up. You can spend money on Facebook retargeting if it means that you're giving people a second bite of the cherry, and you can then attract them back into your ecosystem. So anyway, that's what we're experimenting with at Bluewire. Greg's the guy that we're learning from, and he does have a very good free download. I think it's called the FB swipe file, Facebook ads swipe file. I'll link to that in the show notes as well. That is something that I highly recommend you download. And look, to wrap up the show, I'm hoping that episode sounded really smooth and seamless. It was actually recorded in parts whilst I was over in Bali. So with any luck, you're at the end of the episode now going, no, that seemed perfectly normal, in which case that's a brilliant job by our podcast editor. But it may have sounded like there's a few technical difficulties. If that's what it sounded like, well, that's the reason why. So to wrap up, this show was brought to you by our book, and the book's called Web Marketing That Works. And the gift for you, the listener, are the 33 free marketing templates. So get your hands on those at bluewiremedia.com.au/book. As always, I love your feedback and questions, so send us an email, adam.franklin@bluewiremedia.com.au, or tweet me at Franklin_Adam. And with that, I look forward to seeing you on the next show. Cheers.